Como madre orgullosa, siempre quiero lo mejor para mi familia. Y los únicos huevos que compro son Eggland's Best. ¿Casualidad? ¡Para nada! No importa cómo los cocines, siempre están frescos y deliciosos. Además, tienen más vitaminas D y E y un 25% menos de grasas saturadas que los huevos comunes. ¿Por qué conformarse con menos cuando puedes tener lo mejor? Eggland's Best. Mejor sabor, mejor nutrición, mejores huevos. Visita egglandsbest.com para obtener más información.
Hey Trojan family, what's up? Welcome back to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyward. Hope everyone had a fantastic Sunday, getting ready back for the work week, getting things rocking and rolling, but hope everyone enjoyed your weekend and enjoyed a very nice Sunday here in the Southland. A nice family day here. Not a lot of USC news today, so I had some video stuff I'm working on throughout the week, but just wanted to get on here super quickly with a really brief kind of Husan Longstreet update, if you will. I usually, once guys have transferred out, hey, we talk about it, wish them nothing but the best, Trojans for life, and then we kind of move on. But I've gotten a lot of questions personally, and I've seen a lot out there. Is there a possibility that maybe Husan Longstreet could end up withdrawing from the portal and returning to USC? So I saw enough questions, enough people commenting, that I thought, let's get on here and we can just chat about this super quickly. So as I'm sure most of you have seen, Husan Longstreet he might be in the middle of it still right now, but most recently was visiting LSU, which if you watched my video when the news broke that he was hitting the portal, that's who I said far and away was, in my opinion, the leading candidate to land Husan Longstreet. I just thought the need was there. With LSU, obviously, needing a QB. I thought the connection with Lane Kiffin and his OC, Charlie Weiss, who recruited Husan Longstreet heavily when they were at Ole Miss. So obviously a relationship had already been built. Plus you add in the whole fact that it was pretty much came to light pretty quickly that it was LSU that threw a gigantic money bag at Demond Williams at Washington to basically try to forego his contract, enter the portal, and ultimately end up at LSU. So all of that, it just felt like Longstreet was kind of their last chance, if you will, to get a high caliber, highly starred quarterback. Now he's unproven, so we'll see. But obviously they are still in the sweepstakes for Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt's been on his whole visiting tour as the number one quarterback in the portal. So if he ends up deciding to go to LSU, then that would obviously probably take Husan Longstreet out of that mix. If he chooses elsewhere, then you would expect LSU to kind of have the full court press to probably get a guy like Husan Longstreet, even though he has no experience, and so you're asking a lot for a sophomore to take over a basically rebuilding program. They'll be able to rebuild it quickly because of all the money they're putting into it, but it is a rebuilding program with a brand new staff and everything in place. So that was the latest on LSU front. I don't even know if there was reports, but once he entered, someone put out there the team to watch immediately was Oregon. I didn't fully buy that personally. Just the way that Oregon's operated at the quarterback position since Dan Lanning has been there. They've always kind of, gone in the portal and gotten a veteran guy. When you look at Dylan Gabriel, when you look at Bo Nix, it's guys that have started already. And, they still recruit quarterbacks. We haven't seen any of those recruited quarterbacks play yet. Dante Moore, ironically enough, was originally an Oregon recruit. And then he flipped his commitment to UCLA, played at UCLA for a year, and then ended up back at Oregon, sat a year behind Dylan Gabriel and took over. So to me, I didn't know if where that program was, it made sense, even if Dante Moore decides to go to the draft, which he has not announced yet, to go all in on a sophomore or a redshirt freshman who has not played. Like, I think they would absolutely take Husan Longstreet, but I don't know if they go all in on him being the starter guaranteed next year. I could be wrong. This is still a fluid situation. But anyway, as of today, now it's being predicted, it hasn't officially committed, but being predicted that Dylan Raiola who is a true sophomore, going to be a junior, played, 2 years at Nebraska, is reportedly or predicted by, I think it's a few, I think Steve Wiltfong, I think Pete Nakos, a few guys over at Rivals, to commit to Oregon regardless of what happens with Dante Moore. So he is willing to go there. Even if Dante Moore returns, he would sit. Remember, he's recovering from a gruesome knee injury, so he may not be fully ready by week 1 anyway. And so he would sit and be under Dante Moore for a year, get fully healthy, get in the system, and then he would take over in 27 after probably for sure a redshirt year, whether it's medical induced or not. And so he would have 2 years of eligibility left. So that, I didn't think it was a fit anyway, but if that does happen, feels like that for sure takes Longstreet out of the mix with Oregon, which probably is a big sigh of relief for USC fans. Just because you want, that's a rival. You don't want to have to see him. I want him to succeed. And regardless of where he ends up, even if it is Oregon, I want him to be successful. These are young men just trying to build a career and trying to better themselves and get to the NFL level. But from the fan perspective, that's just a school you would hate to see him have success at. So if that is true, if Raiola ultimately commits there, and especially if Dante Moore returns, then that would take for sure Oregon out of that mix. So now this gets back to USC. So if, let's say, Oregon's basically out, let's say Sam Leavitt ends up committing to LSU, and so LSU says, okay, cool, we're good this year, we'll figure out the future QB next. Like, you're not going to come and you left USC because you didn't want to sit. Would you really come to here and sit a year? I mean, maybe. We'll see at this point. But anyway, so a lot of people are asking, like, if that's the case, would he come back to USC? And the other kind of team in the scenario is Miami, right? Miami, Carson Beck, they're in the national championship. He's obviously done after this year. They'll probably need a quarterback next year, so many think. That's a possibility they could go. But again, on the roster, they have a 4-star, same class as Husan, so a 4-star freshman, will be a redshirt freshman, Luke Nickel on their roster. He was the 16th ranked QB in that class last year. Husan obviously was like the 4th ranked, so higher ranking, but they essentially have the same amount of playing experience, and he's been on their team in their system. So would Miami want to go pay a big premium for a guy that's in the same class, essentially same experience, but is basically wanting a guarantee to start when they already have a guy that they probably feel pretty good about, at least in terms of developing and whatnot? If they were to go to the portal, which is going to be too late by the time that's what this whole scheduling thing is an issue, they're not going to be able to go get a vet quarterback just because there's not any left. So that's really, when you look at the reason Husan Longstreet entered, at least what his dad told everyone, was that he wants to start next year, doesn't want to wait, and he wants to start for a national title contending team.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
I mean, I don't even know if LSU is a national title contending team. They're obviously a big brand, and I think they're going to be competitive just because of the money they're putting, like I'm saying. But I'm not going the next year thinking they're a true title contender yet. They're losing a ton in the portal. And it's just, it's a lot of moving pieces. Ole Miss, probably not going to need a quarterback. Miami, like I said, probably won't. Oregon looking like they're not. So, who is out there? And so I get back. I know I keep circling the wagons here. I get back to those asking, okay, would he just come back to USC? Here's the thing with that, and many of you maybe have seen, this has been now, I think, reported by a few, the NIL money that was allocated for Husan Longstreet's returned, most of that, if not all of that, has now been allocated for the players that they signed in the portal. And so there isn't, not saying they couldn't go and maybe fundraise more, but they basically said, okay, you're moving on. We know that. We're moving on too. Taking our funds, spending it elsewhere. We got Sam Heward coming back as our vet QB, got the medical red shirt, and we got Jonas Williams as a true freshman. Same situation we were going into this year. So I don't think USC would be in any position to say, yeah, if you want to come back, the contract's the same. We'll bring you back, just what we had already talked about 2 weeks ago. At this point, I don't know if they would flat out say no, but it would basically be like, if you want to come back, great, but you're not getting the same NIL deal. I'm not saying that they would say, hey, you're coming back just on a scholarship for free. I'm sure that they would still be willing to maybe come up with something, but it certainly isn't going to be that the figure that he was getting 2 weeks ago or 7 days ago, however much. So I say all that basically mean I don't see a world Husan Longstreet is back with the Trojans. It would take him and his side, and this is more speculation now, really swallowing that pride and saying okay, we went, it's not greener on the other side. We're willing to come back, develop more at a fraction of the cost we were going to get, but just because we feel like we can develop here and then see what happens in 27. I don't see that happening. Could it? Never know. Could happen. They could fundraise more and bring it back for, a still competitive deal. So we'll see how this plays out. I could somewhat see a world where he ends up going to a non-contending program per se. Still probably a Power 4 program. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I didn't look that deeply into who is still kind of quarterback needy. But a program where he could go start, play this season, and then potentially hit the portal again in next year. And then go to his then kind of ending team that is a contending caliber team for this final year, 2 years of his collegiate career. That's speculation. I don't have no idea if that would even interest, but I could see that potentially happening just because the contending team narrative, there's not really that many options out there anymore. So Tennessee would be the other school because all the dominoes are going to depend on what Sam Leavitt does. So if Sam Leavitt chooses LSU, they're out on Longstreet. Tennessee has been going for Sam Leavitt. Tennessee is also waiting on Joey Aguilar, who I believe is petitioning for another year, if I'm not mistaken. If he gets that, I'm assuming they'll roll it back with him. If he doesn't get that and he's out of eligibility, then they would be in real need for a QB. And so he could actually end up at Tennessee, which, is a competitive, contending SEC team with a good offense. Is it a good offense to prepare you for the NFL? Remember, there was all those reports that the main reason why Nico Iamaleava wanted to leave Tennessee, a lot of it, people talked about NIL, but when it really came down to it, then there was talk about we don't feel like this is a system that behooves us for the NFL, this and that, yada, yada. It's all hearsay. He said, she said kind of thing. But there is that offensive type would that be best for Husan to prepare for the NFL? That's just another conversation. So anyway, longer way of saying I don't see a world where Husan Longstreet, regardless of what happens, is back at USC, unless, again, it's really him biting the bullet, basically taking a fraction of what his original contract was with the understanding he's not playing this year. And now there's probably the understanding of hey, you're in a true competition with Jonas Williams the next year. And so I think it's kind of one of those hey, we'll take you back, but there's no favors given in this anymore. So, wish him nothing but the best. Seriously, 100%. I think he's a great kid, super hard work ethic. I think he's a tremendous football player, and I wish he would have stayed here because I just think the development would have paid off, and he would have been a really good Trojan when he did take over in 2027. But I don't see that happening anymore. So that was it. Want to get on here just because I saw a lot of questions of that, but I think that the USC Trojans have moved on, and it will be Jade Maiava, Jonas Williams, and Sam Heward going into this year, with the anticipation that then Jonas Williams would take over as the starter as a redshirt freshman in 2027. So he will be given ultimately the keys to the most talented USC roster we've seen in over a decade. So that's that. hit that like and subscribe. I got a bunch of stuff coming out tomorrow. We got the Polynesian Bowl this week. So we go from the All-American Bowl to the Polynesian Bowl. There's some Trojans playing in that game, so we'll have a little update and you know what those rosters look like and who is out there. Some more DC chatter. I'm sure people are getting tired of it, but hey, we got a week. The portal closes on Friday the 16th. So we may not see an announcement this week, but it should be shortly after the portal closes, which it seems like they are now waiting for that date to come and go before ultimately making a decision. So any more chatter on that, I'll get going for you. Plus just some other off-season tidbits, some more recruiting news from stuff that came out of the All-American Bowl. So we always got stuff to talk about with USC. That's the beauty. So keep it right here. Hit that like and subscribe, and let's keep this thing rolling, family. As always, fight on. Hey, Trojan family, thank you so much for hanging out and watching the USC LAFB show. Before you go, let me tell you quickly about our friends over at Sleeper. Go right now, download the Sleeper app. It's the #1 sports app, not just for season-long fantasy, but they've got live pickers, they've got live stat updates, they've got a chat that you can chat with other users, plus the daily pick'em, which is a blast, or daily fantasy, whatever you want to call it. You go and pick 2 to 8 players across any sports. If you're talking USC, go choose Jade Mayav in his next matchup. Pick more or less passing yards, more or less touchdowns. You stack those, and you can win real money. When you go to make your first deposit, make sure you use our promo code USCLAFB. You're going to get a match deposit up to $100. Put in $100, you get $100 free to play with from Sleeper. Put in $10, they'll match you that $10. So now you're sitting at $20 to play with. But also right now, for any new users, no deposit required. You get $20 free entry. You can stack both. You can get the $20 for free. Go make a deposit. Use USC LAFB. And now you've got a bunch of free money to play with right there on the Sleeper app. Check it out, Trojan family. And when you do, tell them the guys at the USC LAFB sent you.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.